Hello, welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Scott Mailwig at Sports 25 to Life, and we're just talking about what an interesting slate this is because there's a lot of good pitching options, but nobody that you just look at, you see the matchup, you see the odds, and you just lock into your lineup. Normally, guys like Corey Kluber, Felix Hernandez would be those type of guys, but not so much tonight. We talked about all these pitchers on the pitcher nail down, so check that out if you want some more in-depth analysis here. But I think that you and I are kind of in consensus here that guys like John Lester make for great GPP plays. Yep. In cash games, you want to get the guys that maybe save a little bit of money. I like Tyson Ross quite a bit against that depleted Milwaukee lineup. I know there's a few other guys that we were looking at as cheap guys. You mentioned Jesse Chavez under 7K against that Baltimore lineup that's striking out a lot. So I think if I'm going to pay up, I still think that John Lester is probably my favorite pitcher in the 10K plus range.
Yeah, I would say so also. I like Lester quite a bit up there. I don't really love paying for Kluber against an Angels offense that's been a little bit better lately, especially if Trout's looking pretty healthy. Liriano I don't like nearly as much as Lester, although he's an option too. He's the slate favorite in that one at minus 135. We do have some rain and lightning concerns there, I believe, so that makes that a little bit tougher. You mentioned Tyson Ross. I like Felix Hernandez at 9,500 also in that same kind of mold as a GPP play. It's in cores, but he is the biggest favorite on the board by, I want to say, like 25 or 30. Yeah. He's at minus 170 right now.
And you'll never see him at that price again other than the fact that he's in cores.
Right, exactly. And if he just has one of those games where his stuff's on and he's not letting people touch the ball and he strikes out 12, 13, 14 guys, he could easily be the best pitcher on the slate today for that price. Yeah. He's done really well against lefties. Most of Colorado's lineup is lefties right now when they're facing a right-hander. So, I mean, I definitely think there's a ton of upside there. Garrett Richards is a guy we went over pretty heavily on the pitcher nail down. I think he's an excellent option, especially like you mentioned, if Jason Kipnis is out. I think he would probably become my favorite cash game pitcher, I think, if Kipnis is out of the lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sub 10K guy against a inconsistent lineup. Who's, I mean, like you another thing we were talking about in the pitcher nail down, you mentioned they traded away essentially the entire heart of their order. So it's Brantley, Santana, maybe no Kipnis, and then it's just a bunch of average players at best after that.
Right.
So we haven't seen huge upside from him, but he should be a really safe play there, especially if Kipnis is out. One more guy it's interesting. I don't love his price tag, but I'll play him in some GBPs. Lance McCullers, $8,800. We mentioned his absolute dominance against left-handed batters. Almost all of the good hitters are left-handers for Texas. 244 WOBA allowed in 40 innings, 0 home runs. I mean, he just has not been touched by left-handed batters this season. So I think a lot of people will be off him due to the price tag and the 9-run total. Yep. But I think he's a very interesting potentially low-owned target tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Jose Quintana is another guy that I think is pretty similar to some of these other small favorite guys. It's a little bit cheaper than them, and he's facing a Tampa Bay team that just hasn't been hitting the ball. He's 8,400, minus 120 favorite. The only guy you're really scared of in that lineup is Longoria. I think he's an interesting cash game play, although I'd prefer him to be a little bit cheaper than that, as he's not a really high upside guy. I mean, he's not going to go out and strike out 10 guys very often. He's not going to pitch 8 innings very often. He's just kind of like one of the safer plays today, and that's not saying a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, he's still a fair price tag. So maybe if you go with two of the middling type of guys, you can still get some of the big bats that we'll get to here in a second.
Yep.
So catcher options, one of the worst catcher slates I've seen in a little while. I'm not a huge fan of any of them. Buster Posey against Mike Foldwitz, but he's been much better against righties than he has against lefties. Really not trying to pay that. I'm not chasing the hot streak with Hank Conger at almost $4,000. What I'll be doing is saving money, and with that comes some cheaper guys. You've got Matt Wieters against Jesse Chavez at $3,000. A guy that I've been playing a lot in GPPs recently because he's been hot. 4 of his last 5 games with at least 1 extra base hit, including 4 home runs. Wellington Castillo at $2,900 against Doug Fister. Just too cheap a price tag. I don't know that I'll be playing him in cash games necessarily, but there aren't a lot of options that really stand out tonight.
No, not really. I mean, Vogt is probably a guy I'll look at quite a bit. He's facing a pretty weak righty in Wilson for Baltimore, only 3,500. He's probably going to be my cash game guy, I would think. Obviously, Posey's the elite option. I don't really care who he's facing at this point, although he's just overpriced because of the difference between him and the rest of the catchers is the biggest thing. He's not really worth that price tag to me is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So as much as I want him as a cash game play, he's really tough to play, and he ends up becoming a really strong GPP play for me. But I like Vogt as the cash game play there. Cervelli is a guy that I don't mind against Leicester if you're not pitching Leicester. Cervelli's got a 4.35 WOBA against lefties. So there's some upside there, but he's just not cheap enough for me to really go after in cash games against Leicester or even play a ton in GPPs. And then AJ Pierzynski's the guy I mention all the time. He's a fine play against Kane, but at 3,200, for the most part, I'm just going to Vogt is where I'm at for catcher.
Yeah, lots of other guys you're going to want to spend money on, so I'm with you. I'm trying to save money at first base where I can. Or at catcher, I should say. Now we're moving to first base where Paul Goldschmidt, so your most expensive option. You got to love him and Abreu, both in their matchups, but both guys so expensive. It's going to be really hard to pay for those. Lucas Duda has been on fire in the second half, as he does each year. Tom Kohler's had some big-time struggles, especially with the long ball against lefties. 12 home runs already allowed to lefties this year, so I like him in GPPs. I love Brandon Belt at $4,200. San Francisco has one of the highest team totals on the night. And Mike Foltman's allowing almost a 400 WOBA to left-handed batters. So at $4,200, Brandon Belt's probably one of my favorite plays at first base.
Yeah, that was the top one I was going to mention. I think a great GPP play contrarian to that today is Freddie Freeman against Kane, who's been giving up way too many fly balls. He just hasn't looked very good lately. He's got a 388 WOBA against righties, while Kane's allowing a 377 to lefties. He's not going to be heavily owned. It's at Atlanta, so it's not like a great hitter's park or anything, but I've been loving Freeman as a GPP play lately. Atlanta's offense has been a lot more productive, although not amazing lately.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. Other first base options, we don't like to pay down very often for these guys. So I'm looking. I mean, you get guys like Ben Paulson and Coors, but it's going against Felix Hernandez.
Right.
I'm not playing that at $3,200. You can do it in a GBP, and I get it. I think the cheapest guy, Justin Bohr, at $2,700.
Yeah, the only guy I really looked at, and he's the guy I'm going to use in the outfield if I'm using him at all, is Joey Butler for Tampa Bay. Has been hitting fifth against lefties. He's been rock solid against lefties all season. I think he's got a 350 WOBA against them. He's only 3,200, but like I said, I prefer him in the outfield. I'd rather pay for one of these big bats at first base.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Second base, it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to be probably the biggest question mark for most people tonight if Robinson Cano is healthy enough to play in the field again. Been DHing, obviously no DH, moving over to the NL in Coors Field. So at $5,000, he's going to be the chalk play, I would assume.
Yep.
If he's in the lineup against Eddie Butler. I want a bunch of pieces of Eddie Butler because the guy's just awful. And so we'll see. Maybe Cano plays. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe they give him the first day off and we'll let him go tomorrow. But if he's in the lineup, you definitely want him. Other guys, D. Gordon has some big-time stolen base upside against Bartolo Colon and the slowest delivery of all time at $4,400. Outside of that, though, love Logan Forsythe at $3,600 against the lefty in Quintana.
Yeah, not a ton I really like cheap-wise. Scooter Gannett, I think, is okay against Ross if you're looking for a really cheap guy. He's been hitting leadoff. He's only $2,500 on DraftKings. Outside of that, I mean, I'd probably pay up for one of those guys that you mentioned. Second base is not a place you really want to go looking for value today. Jace Peterson's probably my secondary cheap option at $2,800 against Kane, but he hasn't been particularly good against righties given the fact that that's his better split. He's only got 305 WOBA, but like I mentioned with Freddie Freeman, Kane allows a 377 WOBA to lefties this year, so that's not the worst way you can go if you're looking for something like that.
Yeah, one more middling guy, Anthony Rendon, $3,200. We know he hits lefties better than righties throughout his career, but still facing off against a rookie tonight. Had a homer and 3 hits last night against another rookie, Syndergaard, who, I mean, obviously is a much better pitcher. His price isn't going to stay down that cheap for long. Obviously hasn't been a great offensive output for Washington recently, but I don't mind him. I mean, he's too good of a hitter to be priced that low, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, third base options. Nolan Arenado gets Felix Hernandez. I mean, we're talking single bullet GPP for me. I still do like Hernandez, even though it is in Coors Field. I know you do as well. For me, if I'm playing one of the guys there, it's not even close. It's going to be Kyle Seager against Eddie Butler at $4,700.
Yep. Couple other guys I like near the top here. Chris Bryant against a lefty and Liriano, assuming he's in the lineup. He's going through the concussion protocol, I believe, right now.
Yep.
So that's going to be a wait-and-see type thing. Evan Longoria also facing lefty, like we mentioned. Hasn't been great lately, but anytime he faces a lefty, I'm okay with it. He's got a 408 WOBA against lefties this year, which just shows you how bad his WOBA against righties has been.
Yeah.
But I don't mind him at 3,700. I think that's a steal. Although I like him more in cash games than I do in GPPs because he just hasn't had a ton of upside this season. But I mean, he's going to get you 1 or 2 hits against a lefty, so I feel pretty good about that one at that price in cash games. Outside of that, I'm probably looking cheap at third base. There's no one else that I'm really super excited about. As far as cheap guys go, Chris Johnson's a flat 2,000 against Kane. He's been hitting fifth. You mentioned Rendon at second base. I think he's a fine option at third, also at 3,200, assuming he's hitting leadoff like he has been. I guess Aramis Ramirez against Leicester if you want to upside GPP play. He's 3,100, but I don't particularly like him against Leicester.
Yeah, I got one more cheap guy, and this may be more so that I love this player. Lonnie Chisenhall, $2,600. Now not playing third base anymore, not playing in the outfield. He's cheap, and Garrett Richards is pretty good against lefties, but I mean he already got demoted. Been hitting really well since he came back up. He's had 4 starts, had a 3-hit game, a homer, a double. So I mean, if you just need a cheap punt play, I think he's not a bad way to go there at third base.
Yeah, I agree.
Shortstop options. I always love Carlos Correa. It's hard not to, as hard as he hits the ball. But $5,300 tonight with these other options you want, it's going to be really tough to play him outside of a GPP. I think if I'm going to be paying up, and it's not for Brad Miller, if Brad Miller's up near the top of that order, leading off, batting second, you got to love him at 3,800. But I like Brandon Crawford a ton at 4,100. Another one we're talking about, a lefty against a guy who really struggles with lefties. So a lot of good things for San Francisco tonight.
Yeah, I don't mind him. I think my top play is Carlos Correa against Colby Lewis in Texas. I've just been playing him a ton lately. I think he's overpriced tonight probably, but if you can afford him, I think he's my top option for sure. Brandon Crawford is another guy I like a decent amount, like you mentioned. Only 4,100. I think he's a really strong play. Fultiewicz, 397 WOBA against lefties this year. Crawford's actually been better against lefties.
Yep.
But, I mean, that's a tough matchup to pass up at 4,100 without a ton of other good shortstop options on the board. One guy I was looking at is this Ketel Marte guy for Seattle. Flat 2,000. I think he's going to be a guy I go with. He's hit leadoff in back-to-back games. Do you know what the reason for that was?
I think it was because Cano he's been playing second. So
Yeah.
I think if Cano can't go today, I would assume he plays second again.
You think he bats leadoff ahead of Miller again? That's my real question.
I don't know. I mean, he's done well. Had 3 hits in his last
Yeah,
game.
right. That's what I mean. Is like I'm wondering because I'm trying to figure out if they faced a lefty in either of these 2 games because that's a reason to leave Miller at the bottom of the order.
Well, I know that Marte's got a lot of speed. They said he was 20 for 23 in stolen bases in the minors this year, so that could be it, kind of like the spark plug to the offense leading off.
Yeah, you got to think if he's hitting first in the lineup, he's going to be like as close to 100% as we've seen. He's a flat minimum in cores against a righty who does not get people out. I mean, he's facing Butler, who allows a 429 WOBA to lefties.
Yep.
Either one of these guys, Brad Miller or Marte, I think is probably going to be the top play at shortstop, whichever one of them is hitting first, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Marte at that price is really in the lineup at all, I think he'll have decent ownership. So, definitely don't forget about him down there at the bottom, especially if he's leading off.
Yeah, there's not a lot else
without him.
Yeah, right. There's not a lot else at shortstop that I like either. Is the big thing. I mean, I mentioned I like Correa, but he costs 3,300 more than him, and Miller's only 3,800. I think those are going to be the top 2 options in terms of ownership percentage. I like Crawford. There's really no one else that I like very much at short today.
Yeah, and you're going to need to pay for some other guys, especially Nelson Cruz, $5,900. I mean, we mentioned Butler is horrible against lefties. He's not good against righties either. Cruz has already homered in 3 straight games. Now he gets to go to Coors Field. I mean, obviously it's possible for him to not have a big game, but you're hardly going to find a better spot for him. So he's going to be highly owned. He's going to be in all my lineups. I don't see any way you fade him. You can in a GPP, of course. You're playing multiple lineups because he's going to be highly owned, but certainly going to pay for him over Harper or Trout tonight. Trout especially going against Kluber. Tough matchup for him. I'm not paying up for any of these Colorado bats like Carlos Gonzalez.
Nope.
You could throw him in a tournament because he's been hitting homers, but really not for me. Over $5,000.
Yeah, I mean
money.
that stack is so expensive considering it's against Hernandez. I mean, they're priced like they're facing like every other pitcher in that Seattle rotation.
Yep.
And I just can't do it. I think, like you said, Gonzalez is probably the one GPP play guy you can play. A couple other guys that are in that kind of same situation: Starling Marte and Andrew McCutchen against a lefty in Leicester, who's pretty tough. I think they're both solid GPP plays, though. They've been hitting lefties really well all season. Pittsburgh's lineup in general has been pretty hot. I think that's an interesting one. Seth Smith is probably the other Seattle outfielder I'd be interested in, depending on where he's hitting. He's been around fifth against righties most of the time. He's only 3,900. I think that's a decent discount, but he just doesn't have a ton of power.
Yeah.
So that's your problem there. As far as other top lefties go, I like Preston Tucker quite a bit at 3,600 against Colby Lewis in Texas. That's probably going to be one of my top cash game plays. And then a guy that's been hitting at the top of the order for Tampa Bay against lefties, Brandon Guyer, is only 2,900 against Quintana. He's a really interesting play for me. I think he'll be a big time cash game play for me also if I'm not playing Quintana in cash.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And then Gerardo Parra, batting second for Baltimore, gets a righty, $3,900. You got to consider him as well.
Yep.
Other options, you already mentioned Joey Butler, who you said you like out here.
Yep.
He's a fine play at $3,200. As you're looking for other cheap options, there's really not a whole lot that stands out, which is probably why I'm going to end up saving some money at pitcher today. Because I was searching for cheap guys that I feel good about here. I mean, there's really nothing that stands out as a good play. I mean, platoon guys like Johnny Gomes probably won't be playing since it's a righty.
Right.
You could play Ichiro at $2,000 against Cologne if he's in the lineup. I don't think he's a bad minimum salary guy. Zero upside, as you know. I mean, he hasn't upside in years, but he's definitely a guy that you can put the ball in play, maybe get you 7 to 10 points, and pay out that absolute minimum salary for you.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. Travis Snyder, if he's in the lineup, is only 2,600 and has been pretty good against righties. I don't love him, though. He's probably going to hit too low in the lineup with Parra there now. Grady Sizemore's a flat 2,000 if he's in the lineup, but I really don't like the lefty-lefty matchup with Quintana, who's been fairly tough on lefties. Although Sizemore's been really good against lefties this year, surprisingly. I think he's got like a 350 WOBA against lefties, which is pretty good for a 2,000 price tag. That's a price play completely, though. He hasn't been great. It's not a perfect matchup, but if he's hitting like second or third in the order like he has been at times, I think he's an all right play for the minimum. We talked about Butler already. Carlos Gomez looked really good last night. He's 4,100 at Texas. I think that Houston lineup has a chance to do some nice things tonight, although Lewis has been fairly decent lately. I don't mind that Houston lineup's really fun to watch at this point. I mean, with Altuve, Gomez, Tucker, Correa, Gaddis has looked better lately. That's a really fun team to watch, and I think they're going to be one of those middle tier stacks tonight.
Yeah, especially when they get George Springer back too. I mean, that's a terrifying offense for opposing pitchers right now.
Yeah, it is, and they're going to be together for a while. That's a ton of young guys. I think Gaddis is probably the oldest guy in there, and he's, 27?
Something like
is that. Right?
He looks about 35. But
yeah, no.
All right, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our lineup optimizer, Colossus. A lot of great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.